Hey, welcome back, everybody, to today's Market Explained. This is the show where we try to make sense of the financial world that we're in, and we do podcast interviews with folks as well, just to learn a little bit more about what's going on in the world that affects commerce and finance and our culture. So we have a really interesting show today. We've got Matt George, and Matt George is an author and a nonprofit executive with a lot to say. He's actually written his third book. He's on a book tour. And we're going to hear all about that. Matt, welcome to today's Market Explained.
Well, thank you for having me, Brian. I'm excited.
Excellent. Well, good. So we caught you in the middle of your book tour, and you just came through Chicago, and you're originally an Illinoisan, aren't you?
Yes, I grew up in Danville, Illinois, and I live in Peoria, Illinois right now. But I'm speaking from Scottsdale, Arizona right now.
So that's where the book tour is right now.
That's where we're at right now.
Good. So what book are you talking about, Matt?
Well, I wrote a book called The Nonprofit Profit, and it's my second book. The first book was Nonprofit Game Plan, and it did well. And that book was talking about how nonprofit businesses are actually real businesses. People think all the time that, we're just sitting here looking for a handout, but it's really not true. These businesses are huge. Was just in Washington, D.C. as an example, and we got invited to the White House. And when we were talking to some of the lobbyists there in the private sector group, they were saying that and confirmed that 34% of nonprofit employees make up the workforce in the United States. And people don't realize that. So 1/3 of people make up nonprofit work in the United States. And so that I wrote a book, Nonprofit Game Plan. The tour that we're on right now is about the nonprofit profit. It was a book that I wrote, and it's doing well. And then we decided to write a book that was catered towards middle school and high school, and it's got 25 life lessons in it. And that book is called Starfish Among Us. So we've got two books that we're dealing with right now in a fun way.
And you're on a long book tour. How many cities and how long does this go on?
We started October 9th, and we're going across the country till December 18th. We've got 52 cities in 70 days. And the goal and the charge to people in every city, it's not just about selling books. I mean, that's, it's a business, but at the same time, we're charging people with taking care of this community that you live in, taking care of the kids where you live. And it's very important to understand that we've got an opportunity. We're in a unique situation right now that we can make change for good if we actually know what's going on right underneath our nose. And a lot of times people don't understand. And so we've got a lot of violence going on just in the state of Illinois. If you look in San Francisco, there's a huge homeless problem. But if you think about it, they also have a violence problem. Illinois has a homeless problem. And it doesn't matter what community you're in, there are problems. And so we need to, as a community, collaborate and understand that we can make that change and actually turn the tide and live in better communities. And that's what we need to do.
And that's what the book is about.
That's what the book's about. And both of the books are about, because even the kids' book is, we're talking about how do you take care of each other? Stop this bullying. Stop making fun of people. I spoke at a school yesterday, and I sat there, and it was one of the most fulfilling talks I've given. And you sit there and you look at these kids, and they need to understand they have to love themselves first. And once they accept who they are, it doesn't matter all this other garbage going on. Be a great kid, love yourself, take care of the person next to you, and you're going to have a great life. And you have to believe that and stop this negativity. But the adults are driving some of this negativity. And so we have to, as adults, do a better job to be able to cascade that information down to our children, no matter who it is, and be able to sit here and go, you hear all the time, the children are our future. Well, guess what? That's obvious. So let's do a better job being parents, coaches, whatever we are, to our kids to make sure that we give them the runway to do that.
It's a great message, and a big politics is downstream from culture. So you're a culture warrior. You're trying to turn things
Yeah.
around.
Yeah. And we're on it, it's all positive. Like we're going out, you wouldn't believe the stuff that we're seeing. I mean, we've gone to all these cities from Washington, D.C. down to Philadelphia to Cleveland to Columbus, Ohio to Indianapolis. We've worked our way across the Midwest, and now we're just in Las Vegas and talking to great people, nonprofits on the streets there. We're in Arizona today and tomorrow. We're going here in an hour. We're talking to going and walking with all the homeless. We're going into an area that's very tough. And when we do that, we want to sit there and embrace these people and say that, listen, people out here know what's going on. We care for you. We love you. We'll do everything that we can to make sure that you have an opportunity to pull yourself back into the community. We're the United States of America. We should not have people hungry, period.
Yeah, exactly. Most prosperous nation in the world.
It makes some of the things that I see make no sense to me. And so I want to shine a light on it so other people can sit here and say, why do we have kids growing up that are in second and third grade on their phones all the time? Why do they even have a phone? What does a second grader need a phone for? They should go out and be playing wiffle ball and baseball and basketball and track and all these different things. They need to do things that we did as when we were younger. Go out and read a book. Understand what life's about. Life's not about violence. Life is not about not having an opportunity for education. And so we need to actually put this back in front of our kids and sit here and say, we've got you. We're going to show you how to be better. And we all need to do it, period.
It's a great message, Matt. Let's pivot a little bit toward your background. So now you're an author. You were a nonprofit executive for 30 years. How did this all develop? Did you come right out of college and become a nonprofit executive, or how did this all happen?
That's a great question. I actually started, and I get asked this a lot, and at first I really didn't have a great answer, but as I really thought about it, I started when I was 16 years old. I had a friend that had cancer. He passed away. One day he's sitting with me in class, and the next day he wasn't. And it was the first time I dealt with death. And I just couldn't believe it. It was devastating. And his parents really did not have a lot of money. And I sat there and was like, how do you sit here and deal with grief? And then how do you pay for something that has to deal with the grief? I didn't understand that piece. And I was only 16. So I thought about it a lot, and I was like, I think I could raise money. And so I was a tennis player, and I ended up doing a tennis marathon, and I raised money. I ended up raising $3,500 for this family. And when I did, and I gave it to him, I said, I just wanted to give this money to you because I wanted to honor your son. And when I gave it to him, I not only cried, I had chills. I remember it vividly as if it was yesterday. I was 16. I'm 53 now. But I remember giving them the check, and it felt like $1 million. And I was like, wait a minute. That feeling, not only that I received, that I got, but the feeling of you could see the relief from the parents. And I was like, I can do this. So at age 17, I did it. And 18, I did it. And I went out on a limb. My all-time favorite athlete was Walter Payton of the Chicago Bears. And at the time, we didn't have cell phones. And so he had a foundation in Chicago on Gulf Road in Schaumburg, and I kept calling it. I called 13 times, and I left messages 13 times. And one day I get a call, and he said, is Matt George there? I said, this is him. And he said, this is Walter Payton. He goes, you're one persistent son of a gun. He goes, what do you want? And I said, if I had you, I could raise a ton of money. And he goes, well, I know that. So what are you doing? And I told him, and he said, all right. And he invited me to his office. And it really was the springboard to my career was Walter Payton. And so when I went up to his office, I convinced him to come down to Champaign, Illinois. He did a fundraiser for me, raised $150,000 for cancer and cancer research at the University of Illinois. He was the coolest guy. I befriended him, um, talked to him several times afterwards, and I could not believe that someone of that stature actually cared. And I thought to myself, if he cared, then a lot of people really care about their community. And that's what gave me the passion and the drive to move forward and do this for the rest of my life.
Wow, that's a fascinating story. And Walter had already been retired at that point, and I remember the restaurant 34s out in Schaumburg, and he was his whole empire before he passed away tragically.
Yeah.
Uh, and
Yeah.
and yeah, so wonderful. So you got started young. Walter was kind of a mentor. That's really exciting. So then you went right in the nonprofit world right after like your teens and your college period, right?
Yeah, yeah. I actually worked within the NFL for 10 years. I was charged with my cousin was Jeff George, a quarterback, and I ran his foundation. So at age 21, I was a CEO at of his foundation, and we raised money all over the country. And we, one weekend I'm at Brett Favre's event, the next week I'm at Dan Marino's, and the next is Elway's and Aikman, and the list goes on. And I really met a lot of very famous people in the sports world. And then I saw the power of the athlete, and that's what drove me to sit here and think, you know what? I can be the number two to air. I can ride the coattails. I don't mind riding coattails of people that actually are going to sit there and kick open doors if they're doing it the right way. And so I figured that out. And then as Jeff's career started winding down, I was, now 30 years old. We raised a lot of money. We did a lot of events, and I moved to Peoria, Illinois, where my dad was, and I took over a children's home and just taking care of kids that were abused and physically and sexually. And I took care. I just wanted to do it, and it was one of the most pivotal points of my whole life when I did that, and it changed my life. And I thought to myself, you know what? I'm meant to do this forever. And here I am now, 22 years after that, 23 years after that. I stepped down as a CEO. So the unique thing is I was lucky enough to be the boss for my whole career. I never reported to anybody other than a board. I never really had, but I had a lot of mentors. And so I had a unique career to be able to learn business from people, but I really never had a structure. I was just thrown into what I did. But I will tell you this, being in the career that I'm in, it was one of the most unique careers and one of the most fulfilling careers that anyone could ever be a part of.
Yeah, it sounds fascinating. So then you continued on with the nonprofit world, and then you switched and left an agency, right? And that's when you started your author career.
Yeah, well, that started a few years ago. So I actually met Kevin Harrington, who was the original shark on Shark Tank. His brand is As Seen on TV, and he was the brand mastermind behind the George Foreman Grill, and he was the Jack LaLanne juicer, and all these different products. And it's a cool story. I ran into him at a speech, and he said, people are always trying to get hold of me and trying to sell me and trying to do this. And he kind of tried to sneak out the side door, and I snuck out the same door. and I cornered him. And I said, Kevin, you don't know me. My name's Matt George. I run a children's home in Peoria, Illinois. And he goes, yeah. And he goes, I'm busy. I have to catch a plane. I'll call you in 2 hours. And so what happened was I went back to my seat and I thought to myself, he just blew me off. And 2 hours later, he said, Matt George, you've raised this amount of money. Here are your kids. He knew everything about me. He did a background check on me. And he goes, what do you want? I said, I need a mentor. I need somebody like you to push me. I know I can make change, but I can make change in the United States and globally, not just for my community. And he goes, if you're serious, be at this date, this address at this time. And so I flew down to Florida and knocked on a door, didn't know where I was, ended up being his home. And he said, I'll mentor you, but you have to go all in. And I said, I'm all in. And 5 minutes later, he's on the phone with a book publisher. And he says, hey, I've got a guy. And his name's Matt George. And he's coming out to LA. And you're going to help him write this book. And that is how it started. And that book hit #1, Nonprofit Game Plan. And I started traveling with Kevin. And I was in Scottsdale, and then I was in Vegas, and I was in Orlando. And I thought this is going to be the next phase of my life. And then COVID hit. And what was weird about it was he nicknamed me the Nonprofit Prophet. And so he would introduce me as the Nonprofit Prophet. He did videos for me. And so that was my name. And as I went around, I was the nonprofit guy. He coined me the #1 nonprofit person in the United States. And it was all fun. And then when COVID hit, I went back home and I was telling my wife, I can't do this when people are hurting. Like my team, I had 500 employees. These were the people I loved. I have 1,700 kids in this agency. I can't self-promote during a time where people are dying. And so Kevin and I kept our relationship going, but I pulled back from everything. I didn't self-promote. I didn't care about my book. Everything I worked for, I put to the side to get back to the grind of helping my community. And I thought it was going to last 3 months. It lasted 2.5 years. And
Wow.
so, yeah, it was needed and it was the right thing to do. And then I met Mark Victor Hansen, who was the founder of Chicken Soup for the Soul. And that's what actually, as I was stepping down from my job a year ago, he said, Matt, I know Kevin Harrington. We're going to write a book together. And I said, wow. I mean, Mark Victor Hansen sold 600 million books, only second to the Bible. And he said, you're in your 50s. I'm in my 70s. You're going to take the reins of taking care of communities and preaching and talking to these kids. And so I said, I'll take the challenge. And we wrote a book called The Nonprofit Prophet, and he published it. And he's on the cover of the book with me. And then he calls me one night. He says, man, you and I talked about 25 life-changing lessons for our youth. You gave me 25 lessons. I go, I know. And he goes, we're going to write another book. And so we ended up writing another book called Starfish Among Us. And so how this tour all started was because of that. And so in October, just here a month ago, the books were released. They hit like gangbusters. They both hit #1. I'm proud of that. But at the same time, it's given us an opportunity to promote the message, the mission, take care of people, take care of your community in every community across the United States. So I have the backing of Kevin Harrington on Shark Tank. I have the backing of Chicken Soup for the Soul. And now I've got the product to go out and say, listen, we need to make change. We need to stop this garbage that's going on. We've lost our way in our communities, and that's what we're doing.
Nice. Well, it's great. It's such a great message. And so now you're no longer with an agency, as you say, but you're doing all this great work telling the story. What is happening that you see that you can help fix, you think? Let's delve into that. What things are wrong in America right
Well, one of the things is people like to talk about, hey, yeah, we do a great job of collaborating. And I'll push back on them and say, what does collaboration mean? And it's an overused term, and it's a term that I truly think that most people have their own definition of, but they don't know what it means. So what's happening is our communities are taking siloed approaches to attacking issues. That does not work. So why are we sitting here in the state of Illinois with 50 problems going on, attacking 50 problems 1,000 different ways, when we should be looking at our top 3 or 4 problems and saying, let's cut down this violence. Let's get our kids into school. Let's do this. And then let's focus on that. And let's see if there's a trickle down effect that could happen if we take care of the core of what's going on in our community. And that's not happening. We sit here and we go, yeah, let's write a check for this charity over here. And let's talk about this over here. It does nothing sometimes. And that is not the goal. The goal is to sit there and actually have an outcome. And we forget about the outcome. And so when a nonprofit puts on a fundraiser, they care more about what the event looks like than why you're actually putting it on. A fundraiser is a fundraiser to raise money for the cause, for the mission. It's not to sit here and what do you want, steak or chicken? That is irrelevant. Nobody cares. And in this day and age, what's happening is when you look out into our communities, we're seeing, why is all this violence going on? Why are people speeding more? Well, let me give you an example. It sounds pretty dumb, but there's more wrecks going on. There's more speeding. Why is that happening? Because our police forces are down 30, 40, 50%. Why are we having waits that take forever in the healthcare system? Why? Because people don't dream to become nurses anymore. People don't dream to become teachers anymore. So we have a problem with a lack of educators, special ed teachers, speech path, counselors, child psychologists, police officers, fire and ambulance. And what's happening is people don't understand this. But if we don't have those sectors flush, then there becomes gaps. And those gaps hurt our community. And it actually triggers more violence, more pain points. And that's the last thing we need in any community right now in the United States.
now? Absolutely. You mentioned in some of the notes earlier that impossible is only for the unwilling.
Yeah. You know, I have a better one. We need to be comfortable being uncomfortable. You know, we have to sit here and know that it hurts to do some of the things that we're doing. We have to sit here and go, okay, thank you for giving me that donation, but I need more than that. I would actually rather have you go mentor somebody, or I would rather have you take someone off the street and show them how to become productive tax-paying citizens. I would rather have you do something that makes you uncomfortable in 2024. I don't know what it is, you know, but it's we don't even have coaches in Little League anymore that know what's going on. We are a lost society when it comes to filling these gaps. And we have to kind of slow down a little, think of it big picture, and think about what we're doing. And it may sound extreme, but I will tell you, on this tour that I'm on, I'm seeing everything that I thought. And when I was sitting down, I was in Washington, D.C., and I was sitting down with these people that are really in the know of different sectors throughout the whole United States. And when I'm asking these questions, I really wanted to get some verification or validity to what I was thinking. And as I was asking the questions I had, like, what are our pain points right now in our workforce with social service? There was a question. I think that we're at a level 10 right now. It's a problem. They said it's number one on our list. And when I heard that, I thought, all right, that's what I thought. And that should not be happening right now. And so what I saw over the years at Children's Home was that these kids come through the system, and if they don't have a vision, or if they can't figure out what those next steps are, which we have to help with, then they stop dreaming. And what I saw was kids stop dreaming at age 10, 11, and 12. Anything before that, it doesn't matter whether you're born into poverty or you're born not into poverty. All kids are born and they're excited with life and they dream. And then it gets to a certain point where they sit here and say, I'm not dreaming anymore. And we need to have our kids dream.
Nice. So that really affects our whole society, doesn't it? When the crime and all these issues, and the American dream of capitalism, freedom, all these opportunities, that all gets short circuited.
Yeah, I mean, look at the cost of what we spend on things that everything I just talked about. So, like, I'll give you just one great example. If I have 75 open positions in a social service agency, and those positions I can't fill, what that means is people will sit here and say, well, that's everywhere. That's at every restaurant. That's going on right now. But the difference between a restaurant or retail or whatever it may be is you may not sell shoes, or you go on to the next day and try to hit your quota. And if it doesn't work, you go on to the next day. Over here, it equals death, or it could equal death. So when we have 75 open positions over here, and let's say it's related to just kids, or let's just change the sector. Let's say it's adults with disabilities. What's going to happen? What's going to happen is people get antsy, and they're not going to just sit here and wait for something to happen. They react. And if these kids are over here and no one's taking care of, they hit the streets. And that's what looks like homelessness. That affects crime. So when people say, these kids are truant, or these kids are not going to school, or why is this kid asleep in class? Well, it may have to do with potentially, and I've seen it, that kid hasn't eaten in 2 days, or that kid is couch surfing and is just dead tired. And so when you have that whole sector of people, again, that people don't think of, they don't know what's underneath their nose, those people, it affects society. And so we have to do a better job of looking at the outcomes, looking at what we can do together, not in a siloed approach, together to be able to close these gaps. And I'm 100% convinced if we close some of these gaps, that we will see our rates of homelessness and all these other things that are happening, drug abuse. I guarantee these things will start shrinking. But we have to attack it like a business. We have to look at it. This is not just programs. This is not sitting here just throwing. We have to run everything like a business, and it has to have a process, and it has to have a strategy. And we typically, a program's a program, and they run it like a program, and you sit there and you go, well, it is what it is. No, it's a business. And if we thought of it that way and actually put strategies to them and processes to them and did it the right way, I actually think our outcomes would be better.
Nice. So the nonprofit world you're in is a business, obviously, but it's just without profit. But it's meant for social service, doing good for the community. But it's a business like any other business. We need to make things happen, right?
Right. I mean, that was my first book I wrote, was Nonprofit Game Plan, was about people don't understand that we're not on our knees going in and begging for money all the time. 500 employees affect a small town's economic everything. So those 500 employees have families that go eat at restaurants, and then internally, I have HR. I sit here, have an accounting team. I have everything. If you think about it, I had a $35 million budget. What small businesses have that large a budget?
Mhm.
So you look at a typical, even a Chick-fil-A, who does 6.7 million on average in revenue per year. I was 35 million. So we had 500 people that came to work. And I always felt like it was not only my job to take care of the 500 employees, but I also felt it was my job to take care of their families, because those people are what drove our economy in our town. And it's like that everywhere.
Okay. Wonderful. Well, good. Well, it's well needed, Matt, and it's really a fabulous journey that you're on. And how long is this book tour going to go on?
We are going until December 18th. So we've got, we're probably 40% of the way there. And it's been amazing. The people that we've met have just really changed our lives. I call it the Change Lives, Save Lives tour, because that's what I think everybody should be doing. And when we walk in, like yesterday, going into the school, it just melts my heart to be able to look at these kids and know that we made a positive impact on them. And we walked out, and it was just one of those great feel goods, and it charges us up for the next day.
Yeah.
And we're excited about it. So yeah, we're making change.
So being on tour, you see a lot and you learn a lot, meet all these great people. Um, what do you think the future is for America? Are we going to be able to turn around our toxic culture?
Oh,
Uh,
there's no doubt that we're going to turn it around. I mean, I totally believe that we can do great things and continue to do great things. Here's the thing. It's not that we're not doing great things, but we're doing a lot of it. We just need to refocus. We need to actually kind of trim it down and sit here and tighten things up, and sit here and actually look at what the core problems are in each community. And those people need to sit here and say, okay, if it's, here's our top 5, or here are our top 3, not our top 20. You're not going to change 20 things. So I had a conversation yesterday about obesity, and obesity is a huge issue across this country. You're not going to sit here and make change in that sector when you're also sitting here 5 minutes later talking about homelessness.
right.
You can't. So let's look at the core in our communities of each. What are the top 3 or 4 things? And then we do need our leaders. It's not just politics. Politicians can make change, but they can kick open doors and find funding. But it's the true leaders in the community are the ones that are making a difference. And those are the people that have to sit there and use their influence to say, we're going to tackle this problem. We're going to get rid of this. And we're going to take violence from a 38% number to a 30% number, and then to a 20% number. And when you have that mentality, just like you would running a business, you're going to sit here and you're going to feel the pressure off your city, and it's going to start going down. And that's what we have to do. You're not going to sit here. Poverty will be here forever. Homelessness, they'll be here forever. Let's not fool ourselves, but we can help curb it. We can take it down the slope and actually get people working and doing the right things.
That's great. It's great for the culture and it's great for America, Matt. We really appreciate all that you're doing to help us fix what has become somewhat of a toxic culture. It's quite an honor.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you having me on, because it's a platform. You've got a great show. You have a lot of great listeners, and you have people that are actually change makers. And so I just hope that when they hear this, they can sit here and get charged to think, you know what, I probably could do a little more. And it's not just the checkbook. And I
Right.
think that's what people think. It's not that. It's actually, what can you do in 2024 to make a big difference in your community and for your family?
Mhm. That's great stuff. Well, that we're Americans are the most philanthropic nation in the history of the.
Yes. Yeah.
I've seen other continents where they're not that way at all, but the American system is set up to be that way, and you're a great living example of that, Matt. We need to get out there and work to make things better in America and create a better culture. Not necessarily always going back, but some things can go back to the way they were, but other things can go forward as well.
Yeah, and I think we can do it, but we have to do it together. Not one person can do it alone. We can do it together, and that's what America's built on.
Great. Well, thank you for leading. Congratulations on the books.
Thank you.
And so where can we get the books, Matt?
You can go on Amazon. It's the Nonprofit Profit is the one book that's just out, and then Starfish Among Us. And Starfish, I'm very proud of. It's not only for kids, but it's also great for parents and to actually talk about the discussions that you can sit down with your kids and say, hey, you're going to school and you need to make sure that you're not making fun of somebody. You need to make sure that you're taking care of people, and let's do a better job of parenting our kids. And that's what that book's about. You can get them both on Amazon and my other book too. And they're doing well, but you know, it's our job to actually get the word out. And that's why I appreciate you, Brian, so much for having me on, because you're getting the word out and making our communities and our United States a better place.
Appreciate that. And maybe our listeners can go on to Amazon and pick up a copy. And certainly the profits in the book help you with your mission. And that's a great thing. So we're
Thank you.
in your corner, Matt. We want to help you grow and help change our culture better. And
Thank you.
every one of us should be involved in that at some level.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you too.
Thanks everybody for being with us today. We'll leave it there. Great discussion today with Matt George of the Nonprofit Profit, and we'll hopefully hear more from you over time in the future. Everybody, as Matt said, can get the books on Amazon, and so it might not be a bad idea to pick up a copy of the book and learn about America is not just about commerce and money. America is about culture, creating the best culture in the world. I think we have the best culture in the world now, but we've got some fractures and we're trying to fix it, always make it better. And Matt, you're a leader in that. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Brian. I appreciate you. Thank you.
All right. We'll leave it there, everybody. We'll be back again with another great episode of today's Market Explained. Over and out and back soon. Thank you so much today, everybody. Bye-bye.